The feeling of humility, which may as well be expressed as a state of supplicancy, covers within it the condition of innocence. One who attains it in a way attained all, though apparently it may not seem to be so. In that case, the mistake no longer remains a mistake since it has been washed off completely. When the mistake is washed off completely, what is the state that we get? We get a state of humility and innocence. The next phase of devotion now comes in, which cautions him against the repetition of the wrong. It appears in the form of repeated prayers to the great master for granting him a state of contentment to serve as a safeguard against repetition. As we have entered the sphere in the capacity of a supplicant, it becomes incumbent upon us to abide by the rules of duty, avoiding everything that is forbidden by the laws of nature. This can be accomplished when one shortens to the greatest possible limit the distance between oneself and the master. Hence, the best method for that would be to maintain in our thought a constant feeling of his presence. It is also considered to be better to do this at bedtime because one is then free from all the engagements, and the only point in one's view is that of rest and repose. In other words, one finds himself in a comparatively free state. The freedom may thus also be interpreted as nature's way of contentment, nature's state of contentment. Thus, in a way, we acquire conformity with at least one of the aspects of the nature. This is the reason why prayer at bedtime is more effective, and actions done accordingly are all well adjusted. We must therefore derive the greatest benefit from time and take up the work suited for the hour. So today morning also we were talking about the importance of timing as far as meditation is concerned. So it's not without reason that these three things are given at three different times to derive maximum benefit out of these activities. So the prayer is done before sunrise to derive the maximum benefit in conformity with nature. The bedtime prayer is also done at night time because we are in conformity with the nature state of contentment. So the prayer will be more effective. If you do the prayer at other times, it may not be as effective as during the night times. Okay. So shall we move on now? Any questions or any comments that you want to make? That particular 10 maxims is over. So you need to know where what is in the 10 maxims so that you can actually write the answers appropriately. Because generally there will be some questions about 10 maxims. Almost in every exam they will be there.
Brother?
Okay? Go ahead.
Brother, so we have to read along with the Daji's.
If you read it along with the principles of living that was given by Daji, that will be helpful for the exam.
Yes, brother, because we have a lot of questions even from his readings.
Yes.
And also one more doubt, brother, and the 10th maxim, which says that the wrongs done unintentionally. So what does that mean?
That means Babuji is expecting that you will not do anything wrong intentionally. He thinks that all of us are so perfect that we will never do anything wrong intentionally. So whatever wrong happens is only unintentional.
Yeah.
That's what he thinks. He thinks very high of all his abhyasis. Now, if this is what he's talking about, unintentional errors or mistakes, just imagine how miserable we will feel if we do an error intentionally.
Yes.
We are feeling so bad about something we did unintentionally. So if we do something bad intentionally, we will feel very highly miserable. Okay. So that's why he specifically not covered the intentional thing because he expects us not to do anything wrong intentionally. Okay.
No.
Shall we move to the next chapter then? Next book?
Brother?
What
is the difference between repentance and what is it? Regret.
Regret is mostly at a mental level. Repentance is at a heart level. That's the difference. In repentance, we actually are unburdened of the emotional content of the mistake. In regret, we still carry the emotional content of the mistake. That's the difference. So regret is a
Okay.
mental activity, repentance is a heart activity. In regret, we don't unburden ourselves of the emotional content of the mistake, but in repentance, we unburden ourselves of the emotional content of the mistake. These are the two differences.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
Okay. Okay. Shall we move on now? Forward to the first Hindi edition. It is with deep feelings of humility that I have accepted the invitation to write this foreword to the work Anant Ki Or by Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj of Shahjahanpur. When I went through the work in manuscript, I felt that I was indeed ill-fitted to introduce the work to the world. But since it was his earnest desire that I should, however, do so, I have accepted this task. Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj is one of the foremost, if not the foremost, of living teachers of mankind who has rather unobtrusively been training and teaching the path of recondent yoga of the most ancient times to worthy seeking souls. His great and worthy master Samrat Guru Sri Ramchandraji Mahatma of Fatehgarh had taught him the path of direct achievement of the highest or ultimate state and had indeed granted him that most sublime and ultimate state of perfected yoga. The most important part of this yoga lies in the supreme function of the Guru, one who has attained the highest state described as the ultimate or Anand. It's a pity that though philosophers do speak of infinite, they immediately give up the endeavor to realize it. By curious escapism of intellect, quoting the Vedantic text that from which speech returns, mind returns, and senses return. Na vak gacchati, na mano, na tatra surya bhati, na shashankaha, and so on. Indescribable, it is yes capable of being experienced through the grace of the ultimate, for verily the divine reveals its body. Tanum swam vivrinute to the chosen one. In other words, basically that's a Sanskrit word to say the divine reveals itself to the chosen one. Now the question one comes, who is the chosen one? How does the divine choose the chosen one? I'll allow you to kind of ponder on this question. How does the divine choose the chosen one? In the Abhyasa of this yoga, Raja Yoga, Sri Ramchandraji Maharaj gives an inward account of the progress of the experience as the soul passes through one state to another. These bhumikas or stages of the ultimate have indeed been formed for each individual ray or soul through the process of creative descent and has formed the several knots or granthis or planes, each developing a particular law and form of its own, which has made form bondage and sorrow. It is inevitable that a soul that has now formed its descent should attempt to return. The awareness of the steps of the descent having been forgotten, it remains for it to seek one who has now not only knows the step but has gone beyond to the ultimate and can lead one up to that there through yogic transmission from stage to stage. For there is always the serious doubt about anyone who hath ascended but little, but has been caught up in some higher knots of being that is but rotating him in that higher circle or wheel, however much beyond our human state. In other words, what he's talking about, there are 23 circles. We need to keep our direction focused towards the ultimate or the center. Otherwise, if we change direction, we will keep revolving around one of the circles. It need not be the outermost circle that most of the humans are. It could be one of the inner circles, but still it is just rotating around the center only. The acute and clear vision of Sri Ramchandra shows that these not are at once to be understood in their true nature and dissolved, and the higher form recovered and integrated and transcended. The originality of these descriptions and the method of transcendence of these knots are circles of being and experiences of the different kinds of ananda that has made for the descent and now makes for the ascent reveals a new technique unknown to earlier exact yoga literature. We do have descriptions of bhumikas, sapta bhumikas, and granthis in some form of Upanishads, but we never come across the psychological proof of their nature and being and the status of jnana. Sri Ramchandraji gives us an account of the 13 granthis and throws wonderful light on them. They are not to be cut, but loosened and transcended, going further than any He shows higher levels of being which transcend the Gnana Bhumikas and arise at the supreme transcendent states which are open to the human being. But at that stage, the human soul would have passed beyond anything that we call human and arrived at the ultimate being. In and through the proper understanding through meditation, one can discern the stages at which some of the mightiest saints or sages of history have arrived during their lives, and verily, in oneself, the blessedness that is awaiting to be explored and entered into. Here we discern the authentic voice of the Supreme Master, whose love for man transcends anything that one knows of. In the world of the inner conflicts, it is easy to raise the slogans of the world warfare without preparing each for the welfare. In the world of inner conflict, it is easy to raise the slogans of world welfare without preparing each for the welfare. For it is ever true that the problem of universe is the problem of the individual. Those who spoke of a Sarvamukti, simultaneous universal emancipation, hardly try to achieve their own emancipation, for it is verily the truth that the individual emancipation is the first step towards universal emancipation. That all could achieve emancipation at the same time and should, in a fervent hope, is a fervent hope that has hardly divine possibility, but everyone can achieve it in one life, provided he really seeks emancipation, transformation, or supramentalization. It is easy, however, to avoid the effort by an ideological and sentimental intellectual subterfuge for reasons known for or unknown to oneself. There is hardly any doubt that the true seekers of the ultimate experience and the solution of the problem of life will find their pages of utmost help and relevance. They would be guided by the authentic words of the true Guru and seek through him the ultimate. For it is truly said that a true Guru is difficult to get, and in the words of the Upanishad, we can also reply that a true disciple is also equally difficult to get or find. We are fortunate that we have among us a true Guru in every sense of the term, who is earnest to be tried and tested. And may India be enabled to seek his help, and may mankind be profited by his presence among men. We have so many men earnest for the highest life. There are many voices, many doctrines, multitudinous aspirations. It is clear that a spiritual solution alone can be true, and none who has not discovered true spirituality can really be able to help in the regeneration, if not reorganization, of mankind. It is therefore clear that even in the fields of spirituality, voices of lesser caliber are being heard, voices that strikes the notes of pseudo spirituality such as humanism, humanitarianism, and so on, which are expressions of spirituality but not spirituality itself. So there are few stages. We are materialistic, then we become human, then we become humane, then we become divine, and then we become real. These are the stages in which we pass through. We have to arrive at the real thing, which is unadulterated spirituality. For the present age is a more complicated age than previous one, acquires a complete transformation of man all over the world in his all his attitudes. True unity in the world and all other cooperative enterprises, international or interracial, can hardly touch the core of the human problem. Therefore, it becomes incumbent on men of serious purpose to seek the real and the ultimate stuff. It should not be said that we are merely seeking to dissolve men in the primeval and original substance and be lost or merged in it forever. On the contrary, it appears that we can hardly have universal salvation until unless we regain our awareness and experience of that ultimate state for each. This does not mean extinguishment of the ray of creation in the individual on his attainment of the mukti, leaving the world power and God without a ray of lila. So we attain liberation also, we attain the highest state, but we also partake in the lila of the God. It is therefore with the feeling of urgency of individual fulfillment and realization that Sri Ramchandraji has given the book to the world. May he live long to see the fulfillment of the hope of ages. So this is just a preface. So that's why I just read fairly fast. Okay. Shall we move
Brother,
on to
that preface, sorry to,
Helri,
brother, the preface was written by whom, brother?
Vardachari.
Vardachari, is it? Brother,
Oh,
sorry to say, but some books have it that that whole thing is missing in the standard book.
which standard book?
Whatever we are having now, right now.
It doesn't have.
Volume
It's
1?
not.
No,
It's
no.
not with
I'm
me.
wondering so where you're reading.
Yeah, even
Okay.
I.
No, what has
No, it is
happened
there
is,
in some other volume. It's not in our volume.
okay. I think the later volumes, probably the recent volumes in the last 4 or 5 years might not have it. This is a 2013-14 edition. So that's why it probably has it. So there are a lot of things which has been changed in your book. So not to worry.
Yeah.
Okay. So it's a very good, what do you say, introduction that Vardachari has given for this particular book. But Vardachari's language is not as simple as Babuji's. In fact, Babuji's language is more complex compared to Daji's. So it looks like even the language is becoming simpler in the mission by the day. Preface. You have the preface, or even that is not there?
We have
A
preface, brother.
preface by
It's
Babuji
there.
is there.
Ah.
Yeah.
The only purpose for which this book has been written is to reveal to the world what Gnana knowledge really is, and to acquaint them with a condition at different levels of approach. It is, of course, certain that our religious books speak a lot about it, but unfortunately, the quack commentaries of the later period have, on account of their wrong understanding, misrepresented the fact in such a way so as to drown the true sense. The responsibility for it lies mainly on those who have made it their profession to indulge in false dealings, presenting imitations for the real. They, not taking into account its evil consequences, went on recklessly engendering poison into the heart of the people. Thus, poison alone was administered in place of the nectar, and spirituality was in fact strangulated at the very outset. Unfortunately, they ruined not only themselves but also others by their misguidance. Learned lectures, spirited sermons, and manifold discourses are all merit that attract the mind of the people these days. As the masses were, so did they get the leader to guide them on. They applauded him for his show of knowledge, and he, in his turn, went on imposing more and more of his importance upon them. Thus, he came to be generally accepted as the knower of true knowledge, who deserves all honor and respect. Thus, his means of livelihood were ensured safely and in a most honorable way. This is all that he got as a reward for his labors. But if anyone was to question him as to whether the sermon he preached was one based on his personal experience or experiences of others, which he had borrowed from books, he would only say, whatever it might be, it is after all the very wisdom. Some people went even as far as to presume that mere acceptance of the transitory nature of the material world and the infinite character of the divine is all their wisdom implies. This goes to mean that they can relish the taste of mango by simply talking about its sweetness. Can the description of the taste ever satisfy the appetite of the listener? Or can the hunger of a man be ever appeased by preaching to him that bread can satisfy the hunger? Certainly not. But still, these pseudo religious leaders feel greatly exalted to think that they had preached a grand sermon and they were very real Gnanis, knowers of true knowledge. Thus, it is exactly as a man who enacts the role of a king on a stage and goes about afterwards thinking himself to be the king in the real sense. Can he ever command the same honor and influence as a real king would? Let a person assume himself whatever he wills, but that will always be far from the reality, and it will not be difficult to judge at sight the real worth and the level of approach of such a vain preachers. They may, however, silence others by the logical display of their scholarly knowledge, but still the reality at the bottom seldom remains unrevealed. May God have mercy on those who are in the hands of such impostors who keep themselves confined only to books. The real wisdom not being the concern of such persons, they pretend to preach and lead people on the path which they themselves have never traversed. Living is not for them to bother about. Forbearance is a foreign word to them. Toleration is against the code of so called saintly conduct. Acceptance. So he is now talking about what are the qualities that a saint should have. They should be living what they preach, they should have forbearance, and they should have toleration. Acceptance of personal service from others is their birthright, while to serve others in the same way is below their exalted dignity. To them, the divine knowledge is quite exclusive of all those most common rules of etiquette and good conduct. In their view, wisdom is only an academic current meant for the fickle minded masses, their being the only job to divert it towards them. This is all the greatness of their saintly personalities. How to awaken the various states of the real wisdom in the Abhyasi's mind is not their concern at all. To understand the mysteries of the Granthis and to attain Layavastha or and to unfold and master the different states of enlightenment is all beyond their conception. Neither do they themselves know anything about it, nor would they condescend to learn it from anyone and accept its guidance in the matter. Yet, from whom, after all, are they to learn when all of them are alike in this respect? They feel and proclaim themselves to be teachers of men following a family life. To learn everything from the latter is beyond their understanding and their sense of dignity and pride. This vanity and egoism has entirely ruined their spirit, and thus the real merit is lost, though the outward form still remains intact. When it comes to be so, similar developments began to come into effect as its results. Everything assumed its true state, and the same effect began to be reflected from it. The significance of the yoga vaslat and parrot-like recitation were taken up to be all that was needed for the purpose. Thus began to be preached all round. This began to be preached all round as the highest mark of perfection. Thus, they not only remained blind to reality, but also have been incapable of ever imitating it in its outer ways, though through their external practices. On the contrary, adverse thoughts began to settle down in their mind, and they began to teach the same to others. If they turn towards devotion, they begin to display a playful show of human qualities, and if they lean towards knowledge, their true reality was revealed in its true colors. They squeezed our only they squeezed out only that which their garment was colored with. In short, the people inherited the very defects which existed in those teachers. Common men, being pleased with their easy-going ways, rules adopted them for their practice only to drive themselves finally to a state of distortion. The teachers are in fact following the very practices which go against the attainment of the real knowledge, yet still the vanity of being a Gnani stands. They do not bother about what others say about it. Their only concern is about what they themselves say. They do not even allow others the privilege of pointing out the right thing to them because that would be a rude shock to their sense of self perfection, and in that capacity, they outwardly feel justified for it. What nature wants men to lead to is quite unknown to them because they have no access up to it. They do not even know that now the time has come for them to mend their ways. A man can rightly be taken as the knower of divine knowledge in the true sense when he has mastered the various conditions depicted in the booklet. Please underline that particular line. A man or a person can rightly be taken as the knower of the divine knowledge in its true sense, where he has mastered the various conditions depicted in this booklet. He who transcends them is capable of being a guru or teacher, and who transcends beyond, where one might rarely be able to reach, deserve to be called a Sadguru. Further beyond, there remains nothing which is not within their comprehensive knowledge. I have written this book not to cast aspersions on anyone, but only to help the so-called Gnanis in throwing off their vanity and egoism to secure their firm stand in the absolute reality so that they may also be helpful in transforming the world in accordance with the demand of nature. Mend the times will, but it will be better if such persons too had their share in it. So, Lata sister, go ahead.
Brother, you are studying, reading from Towards Infinity.
Yeah. Correct.
Yeah. But brother,
Actually, you told Sahaj Marg, no, at that time, I went to bring a pencil. So I was so confused what you are reading. Okay.
no, Lata sister, it's okay because
Hmm.
many of the paragraphs brother is reading is not there in our book. Don't worry about it. The whole, there's so many, brother, I don't know why people are editing Babuji's words. I have no clue what they're up to in life. But what you're saying is vastly different from what this book is saying in many places.
Correct. So always better to
But
depend on the older book.
but
Right.
but in that new book reading session you put us into, they said it has been recommended that there is a standardized book now. We have to follow the standard book. So
Correct. For the exam perspective, that's correct.
okay, got
Because
it.
they're going to ask from the standard book.
Okay.
But as you said, from the perspective of understanding, some of the older book contains a lot more elaboration, lot more intricate points. Even the
Yes,
Kannada
brother.
book contains lot more intricate points. So, reading the book from the perspective of preparing our heart and mind is different than preparing for the exams. So,
Correct.
there is slight difference. Okay. So, I started the Towards Infinity so that we can cover that. But I was waiting for 7:30 to be over so that we can go down to the Sahaj Mark philosophy. I don't know where we left Sahaj Mark philosophy. Have we started Sahaj Mark philosophy at all or not?
No, we
we
have not
didn't
started.
start.
Okay, we'll start from there then. So we have come to the first chapter here in the Towards Infinity, the Gnana Yoga. Remember that. We'll continue that tomorrow. We'll come to Sahaj Mark philosophy introduction. Do you have the introduction, Sahaj Mark philosophy?
Yeah, yes.
Okay. So let's go through the
Brother,
introduction.
just before we go there, what do you want us to be prepared for tomorrow, brother, in Towards Infinity? How many knots? Knowledge and anything?
No,
You want to set a target?
1 minute, 1 minute. So I want you to prepare up to the fifth knot.
Fifth knot. Okay.
Okay. So please read
Okay.
up to fifth knot and come.
Okay.
So let's look at Sahaj Mark philosophy now. The reason why I said we'll cover side by side because Sahaj Mark philosophy has lot of repetitions of many
Yeah,
things which are there in this reality at dawn and other places.
yeah.
So it becomes easier for us to go through it at a faster pace. That's why we said half an hour we'll spend for Sahaj Mark philosophy. Okay.
Yeah.
So let's
Yes.
go through it now. Concept of philosophy. Philosophy is a subject not based on reason but intuition. It starts from not from doubt, as most of the Western philosophers hold, but from wonder. Generally, philosophers have attempted things before actually going into the life of practice, as is commonly the case with the Western philosophers. I may say that it is not certain that the philosopher being a philosopher cannot be corrupt or degraded, but there is no possibility of corruption if he had studied things by leading a practical life. So, philosopher without leading a practical life can get corrupted. Please remember that. So the first two, three lines that philosophy is a subject not based on reason but on intuition. It starts not from doubt but from a sense of wonder. Please underline these three lines. This is something that is asked in the exam question. Sages in India have generally attempted philosophy by first going into the life of practicality. They have opened the secrets of existing things as far as they could do at their level of advancement. The outcome is the six schools of philosophy in different hues. We should always attempt the expression of things when our practice or abhyas is over. This is the key point for the philosopher to note in order to achieve the accuracy of things. Now, the six darshanas in Hinduism has come about by people who have evolved to the six different levels of advancement. So, based on their levels of advancement and their view of the things, they created the six darshanas. What Babuji is saying that you have to try to teach things to others after you have actually reached the ultimate. So you have to attempt expression of the things when our practice or abhyas is over. When is our practice or abhyas is over? When we have reached the goal. Only after that we can actually accurately describe what we are talking about. India is the home of spirituality, and as such, the pursuit of the real has been active here in all ages. Spirituality is a science concerning the power which flows from the original repository and has the capacity in the form of knots, both of creating and destroying. Please underline this. What is spirituality? Spirituality is a science concerning the power which flows from the original repository and thus has the capacity to form the knots also of both of creating and destroying the knots. The sages in India have used the power of creation for the reformation of humanity. The destructive power too is found in such abundance that even the atom bomb is nothing in comparison. The yogi uses these things according to the divine command and his willpower. At present, too, this power is being utilized and a new world is being created. A spiritual renaissance must necessarily take place, and India will again lead the world, no matter how long it may take. Other countries have begun to realize that no nation can survive without spirituality. The age of diplomacy and stratagem is now passing swiftly. By the end of this century, a great change is bound to take place. Everyone should gladly welcome what is described, destined to befall, and should come to the path of spirituality whereby his welfare is promoted. I am revealing herein the greatest philosophy. People may grasp it or not in the beginning, but in due course of time, they will surely begin to realize it as such. This is not any introduction. Only those 2, 3 lines, that is enough. Whatever I made you to underline, that is enough.
Brother,
Yeah, go ahead.
what do you mean by that? Spirituality is both for creating and destroying.
So there are two aspects of spirituality. Like there is two aspects in creation. The moment we say creation, there is destruction inherent in it. Right? Likewise, there are two powers in nature. One is a creative power, other one is a destructive power. So both are working all the time. Anything that is created in nature always undergoes destruction in due course of time. That's bound to happen. So in other words, Babuji is talking about creation and destruction happening simultaneously. And today morning we were reading about a particular point in the complete verse again while reading Kannada, that each chakra can have multiple knots. And the new knots can be formed and old knots can be unformed. So this is something new for you. Just keep that in mind. It is there in Babaji's complete works only. Volume 1 only. We were
Yeah.
reading that in the morning.
Yeah, right. And I was also wanting to ask that, what is the difference between a knot and a chakra?
My suggestion is, knot is a small part of the chakra. It's like,
Subchakra.
for example, you have a big problem and there's some minor problem in that, which will aid you to solve the big problem. But the solution of the minor problem in itself will not be sufficient to solve the major problem. So that is the relationship between a knot and a chakra.
Okay.
I hope you got it. So
Yeah, I'm
suppose there
trying
is a
to.
big problem and there is a minor problem. You try to solve the minor problem first. But the solution to the minor problem is insufficient to solve the major problem. Now, when, for example, there is a big problem, what do? We break down the problems into multiple smaller problems. Right?
So it's like in the project management,
Exactly. Very similar to that. Very
yeah,
similar.
bigger task broken into
Exactly.
smaller
Bigger
tasks.
task is broken down into smaller, easily achievable task.
Okay. Yeah.
That's all. Okay.
Yeah.
So each of the task is a knot. The whole project is like a chakra.
Yeah. Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
Yogita,
Brother, knots can be dissolved, but chakras
yeah,
cannot be, right?
chakras also unfold. That's like you are saying that as only minor problems can be solved, major problems cannot be solved. How is it so?
The
Problems
question is
also should be able to be
dissolved.
solved, no? Why do you think the major problems will not be solved?
Okay, brother. I think it becomes one, right, brother? All the chakras, when you mastered it, it kind of become one whole.
What do you mean by one?
Like there is no differentiation in it. Is that correct?
I don't get your point. What do you mean by one?
It becomes like a one whole region. Like, for example, if you have mastered the heart region, you will not feel point 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 separately. You'll feel like one whole region.
Nothing like that. Until unless you reach the 12th point, every point and its conditions can be felt separately.
Brother.
You got the point? Until
Okay,
unless
yeah,
you
brother.
reach the 12th point, every point or every chakra and all the conditions in the chakra can be felt separately.
Brother.
So don't be under the impression that once you cross the heart region, all everything will become one. Once you cross the mind region, everything will become one. No, nothing like that. So please take away
But
that idea.
and the chakras, brother, is a physiological phenomena. It has got nothing to do with destruction. It doesn't get destroyed as long as life lives. That's what the sister is kind of hinting.
Nominal aspect of the chakras are always remaining.
Yeah, thank you, sister.
That
Thank you,
is
brother.
that is what makes us to continue to be human, even though we reach the highest in the center. So the chakras are never destroyed per se. A nominal aspect of the chakra is always left in place. Okay. So what happens is all the conditions of the chakras get expressed out. It's like a flower opening. Now, would you say that just because the flower is blossoming, the bud is getting destroyed? Is that what you say? Would we say that? Just because a flower is blossoming, would we say that the bud is getting destroyed?
No, no,
No,
no, brother.
no,
No,
no.
it's only growth.
We only say that it's a different way of expression of the bud in a more blossomed way. That's all. Right?
Yes.
That's exactly how it is. Initially, the chakra will be like a bud. When it is like a bud, you consider it more like a knot or a point. As and when it kind of gradually opens up to some extent, you call it as a chakra. Then when it further opens up, you call it as a lotus. That's all it is. It's very clearly explained in the spiritual anatomy book. So the knot or the point or the chakra or the lotus are nothing but expression of the same thing in different levels of, what do you say, unfolding. That's all it is. The same thing, when it unfolds to some extent, you could give it a different word. When it unfolds to a certain more extent, you give it a different one. When it unfolds fully, you give it a different word. That's all it is. It's the same thing that you're talking about. Okay? Sorry, we shall continue. At least we'll finish few pages at least. History of Sahaj Marg. Great men are not accidentally born. They are born when the world awaits them in eager expectation. Such is the phenomenon of nature. India, the home of spirituality, was groping in darkness and had totally forgotten the age-old system of yoga. Solid materialism had taken the place of fine spiritualism. Dark clouds of ignorance were hovering all over. Yogic transmission had become quite foreign to the Hindus. At this stage, when spirituality was tottering helplessly, some great personality was urgently needed to set things right for the upliftment of mankind. It was the auspicious day of the Basant Panchami of the 2nd of February 1873, on which the power of nature descended on earth in the human form of Samarth Guru Mahatma Sri Ramchandraji Maharaja Fatehgarh in district Farrukhabad. The happy days, so beautifully coordinated with the most pleasant season of the year, breath into every heart the blooming freshness of the spring. This blissful time, ushered in by his advent, introduced a new era of spiritual awakening which promises a practical solution to the human problem of existence. We are struck with a reverent, joyful awe when we recall to our mind the grand renaissance brought about by him in the spiritual field. He offers an easy solution of the problem of existence which has ever been confounding even to the greatest of the sages. This divine personality was born in a respectable Kayastha family. His childhood was influenced by his mother, a noble minded, simple lady who spent most of her time in devotion and worship. It was due to her influence that he received inspiration at a very early age. The incident goes that one day when he was playing with his mates, some divine force aroused in him the feeling that he had not come here for the purpose he was engaged in. He had to realize himself and to equip himself for the greater task ahead. The soul was awakened and he set to it in the right direction, in earnest. He attained perfection in only 7 months. Please underline this. He attained perfection in only 7 months. Really an unparalleled example. Since then, he devoted the whole of his life for the cause of spirituality. He is the Adi Guru of our mission. He was an embodiment of moderation, toleration, and devotion. With him dawned the new era of yogic transmission, training through transmission, of which he was the master. He showed a way to bring a man to perfection in one life only, and even while leading a family life in the Grihastha ashram. He used to say that the troubles and miseries of the Grihastha life are penances and sacrifices for spiritual attainments. He had simplified the method of spiritual training to such an extent and adjusted to suit the requirements of our time. With a high caliber and spiritual dignity, our great master, the Divine Light, devoted every moment of his life to the upliftment of humanity. He was, in fact, nature's prodigy, and his work in the spiritual field is beyond common conception. His wonderful researches in this science have made human approach up to the highest limit in the least possible time quite possible and practicable. He introduced an improved system of Raja Yoga, which later came to be known as Sahaj Marg. After serving the masses for about 36 years, this spiritual genius left his material form at the age of 58 on the 14th of August 1931. The work he did during his lifetime is beyond conception. Posterity will know his merit in due course. Sri Ramchandra Mission was established at Shahjahanpur on the 31st of March 1945 after the name of this great personality by me as his successor through his grace, and slowly it is attracting the seekers of the real from everywhere. I am happy that the Master's grace is working in this respect and people are attracted to benefit from his grace. The system of Sahajmarg Sadhana, now followed in the mission, presents an easy and natural path for the attainment of the ultimate. Sahajmarg does not advise those cruder methods which are hardly practicable in the routine life of man. Under the Sahajmarg system of spiritual training, the action of the senses is regulated in a natural way so as to bring them to their original state, just as it was when it assumed the human form for the first time. Not only this, but the lower breaths, which are working independently, are subjected to the control of superconsciousness. Hence, this perverse action is mapped. The higher centers coming under the charge of the divine centers, and in this way, the whole system begins to get divinized. So, from the word under the Sahajmarg system of spiritual training, from that till the end of the paragraph, please mark it. Under the Sahajmarg system of spiritual training, the action of the senses is regulated in a natural way so as to bring them to their original state. This is what happens to the senses. The senses go back to their original state, just as it was when it assumed the human form for the first time. Not only this, but the lower vrittis, which are working independently, are subjected to the control of the superconsciousness. Hence, this perverse action is stopped. The higher centers come under the divine centers, and in this way, the whole system gets divinized. Special features of the Sahajmarg. Whatever I say or write is on the basis of my own experience and anubhava, irrespective of what Shankara, Ramanuja, or others might have said about their own. Everyone in this world wants peace. That means that realization is not its object. In that way, we will get peace only and not realization. But if realization is the object, peace will automatically come in its wake. We should not only be after knowing what realization is, but also try to attain it as well. Generally, people think it is difficult, nay, quite impossible to attain liberation in this very life. This, however, is a mistaken idea. Who knows, perhaps this very life of ours might be the last one, taking us towards liberation. Our master's declaration is that a sadhak can reach such a state not only in one and the same birth, but even within a shorter period, if he is a diligent worker and he's got the right guide, real guide. This he proved also, but the proof is impossible to be given in words. Our experience alone can show it. The popular belief that God can be sought for only in the midst of the forest, as he is a forest dweller, is in vain and absurd. I believe that it is better that we seek him in the midst of our own heart. But for that purpose, the spirit of the Spartans is necessary. There is not the least justification for anyone to flee away from home in utter disregard of his worldly duties and wander about without any definite aim or purpose. As a matter of fact, even in that state of vairagya, one is seldom free from the feelings of worldliness. The most important feature of this system of sadhana is that it goes on in conjunction with the natural worldly living of the common man with due regard to his duties and responsibilities of life, so that both the facets of the life, the spiritual and the divine, the worldly and the divine, may develop equally bright. We do not mean merely to preach or propagate these ideas, but also to bring them into practice and apply them in daily life. The mission aims at the promulgation of the ideology set forth by the great master through this newly introduced system of Sahaj Marg, and to awaken the sleeping masses to divine consciousness so as to set them right on the path of progress. For this purpose, it is but essential that the old mechanical methods involving force, austerity, and penances, most ill-fitted to the environments of present-day life must necessarily be set aside and replaced by simple and natural means. As far as the attainment of liberation or complete freedom is concerned, almost all the great sages of the past and the present agree on the point that Raja Yoga alone is the path that ensures success up to the final limit of human approach and everyone destined to complete freedom. Realization must sooner or later come to it. Sahaj Marg runs closely along the lines of Raja Yoga, but of course with certain amendments and modification to purge out superfluity from that system. Under Sahaj Marg, the master support being a very special feature of the sadhana, it becomes incumbent upon the master Abhyasi to seek a worldly guide to lead him on, helping him by his own power transmitted to the yogic process of pranahuti. The master, by the application of his inner powers, awakens and accelerates the dormant forces in the Abhyasi to action and directs the flow of the divine current towards his heart through the process of pranahuti. So, the master ಅಂತಿದೆಯಲ್ಲ ಅಲ್ಲಿಂದ from there up to pranahuti, please mark it. The master, by the application of his inner powers, awakens and accelerates the dormant forces in the abhyasi to actions and directs the flow of the divine currents towards his heart through the process of pranahuti. As a result, the abhyasi begins to advance spiritually, experiencing more and more of bliss. The abhyasi has only to prepare himself to receive it, or in other words, to make himself capable and deserving of it. In this way, all that which previously required persistent labor and hardship can now be achieved very easily in a much shorter time with least labor. But it is all practical and it cannot in any way be put into words. Only practical experience can reveal its merits. Many a man must have had a taste of the condition of peace. In fact, the actual state of peace is beyond comprehension. It admits no contradiction. Please underline this. The actual state of peace is beyond comprehension and it admits no contradiction. That's also another exam question. It is literally neither peace nor restlessness, neither union nor separation, neither bliss nor otherwise. It is after all that for which we had developed pain. May you all have a taste of that pain. It is not, however, difficult to cultivate. What is necessary for that pain to be cultivated? Only a firm will and an undivided attention towards it is all that is required for the purpose. Then that which you seek will be found quite close to you, rather with you. Nay, you might yourself be that which you seek. For that there must be burning in the heart, which might burn down the weeds and bushes on the path. I do not mean to advocate in any way the orthodox idea of Gurudom. In our Sanstha, we take it in the sense of common brotherhood in the spirit of service and sacrifice, helping each other as needed and required. So please underline that. In our Sanstha, that is also an exam question. We take it in a sense of common brotherhood in the spirit of service and sacrifice. The Sahaj Marg system of spiritual practice and training is open to everyone without any distinction of caste, creed, sex, or color. Seekers of truth may come to experience and practice and derive the greatest benefit from the grace of my master, who has turned a new leaf in the tradition of Indian philosophy. May the benign supervision of the Supreme Master guide all of us to the realization of the ultimate goal and fulfillment of the human purpose. So we'll stop there. We've just finished 1 minute ahead of time today, which is good. So tomorrow we'll continue with the reality and its aspect. So if you want to read, you can read this chapter also because it's a pretty big chapter, reality and its aspect. Okay. So tomorrow you can read up to the 5th point in the towards infinity, and here you can read up to page number 383 in my book, or you read the 2nd chapter, which is reality, the static and dynamic aspects. Okay. So 2 people have raised the hands. Please go on.
Brother, for morning session, what is the same link can we use, brother?
No, it's a different link. It's a Kannada link, so I'll send you the link. Please message me.
Thank you. Thank you, brother. Thank you.
Yogita?
Brother, can you please expand this statement? In fact, the actual state of real peace is beyond comprehension. It admits no contradiction.
There, Babuji is talking about not the peace that we talk about in our usual terms. He's now talking about or equating the peace to reality. He's now talking about the perfect balance or the perfect calmness that prevails in the center. That he's calling as peace. That's why he's now talking about it is beyond contradictions. So, what are the contradictions that it is beyond? It is beyond peace and restlessness in the way that we normally speak about peace. It is beyond union and separation. It is beyond bliss and otherwise. So, these are all the opposites. So, when we reach the highest, the peace that we get is beyond all these opposites. In a way, even when we go to the eighth point, we will read that in Towards Infinity in the next 1 or 2 days. When we go to the eighth point, we start experiencing non-peace peace, refined peace. Now, that refined peace itself is beyond the duality, because the duality is very strongly held in the Pinda Pradesh, in the heart region. But of course, there is the duality between, in the mind region also, between me versus you. That means human versus God. So that aspect is also there in the mind region. In the heart region, you have love versus anger, contentment versus discontentment, peace versus restlessness, anxiety versus courage, confusion versus clarity. All these dualities are there in the Pinda Pradesh or the heart region. In the mind region, it is the refinement of the ego, various layers of the ego. And when the ego is strong, we say, I am. So we assert the I. When the ego becomes refined, we don't assert the I. That's all that happens. So the duality is still there, even in the mind region, I versus you. Although the I now gradually get transformed into we versus you. Eventually, even that aspect of the we and the you also gives way. Ultimately, then we enter into the final state of peace. That is what Babuji is now talking about. Peace in the final state, in the center. It's like after we have reached the goal, we feel very peaceful. That's our daily experience. You have set a goal, and once you reach the goal and realize the goal, you are at absolute peace. That's what we say. That is the peace that he's not talking about now. Not the interim peace that we feel when we come to second point or the eighth point. That's not what he's talking about. Okay.
Brother,
Brother, what are vrittis?
Vrittis are nothing but tendencies that we have.
Tendencies. Okay, brother.
That's all.
brother,
Satish, tell you.
means there are no paradoxes in that.
There are no paradox. Reality is one and absolute and the same. Even the idea of oneness is heavy in reality. Reality does not even have the ideas of oneness. We keep talking about Dvaita, Advaita, Vishishtadvaita. You remember?
Yeah.
Even those ideas are very heavy as far as reality is concerned. All these ideas are a conception of human mind. Reality does not know that it is one. Okay? That idea itself is very alien to reality. Reality is, that's all. You cannot describe anything more about reality. The other way of knowing about reality is that reality is the subtlest of the subtlest state, which is beyond existence or non-existence. In that way, you can actually come closer to defining reality. Subtlest of the subtlest state, which is beyond existence and non-existence, is reality. That you can say. But beyond that, if you want to say even in simple terms, you can just say it is just as it is. That's all. We read yesterday in the Maxim 5, remember? It is as it is. That's all.
Even Babuji is finding it difficult to explain. I mean, describe
So you
it.
cannot put it into words. He's trying to
Yeah.
put it into words, something which can only be experienced.
Yeah.
That's why he's given the example of trying to know the taste of the mango by describing it. We can never know the true taste of mango by description. We can only know the true taste of mango by tasting it. That's why he's emphasizing on experiencing it. Once we experience it, then we'll be left with no questions or doubts. Okay.
Thank you, brother.
Saripa, thanks for your time.